we're going to jump in. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about last year. As much as I personally would like to put 2022 in the rear view, you really do need to have some idea of how well your marketing efforts did in 2022 or how not well they did, so that you can make changes in 2023 and not repeat necessarily the same mistakes, and at the same time do more of what may have done well. So a couple of things that you should be thinking about when you're looking back at 2022. One of the things that you want to do is make a list of all of your properties. And what I mean by properties is make a list of all your social media profiles. Do you have a Facebook? Do you have an Instagram? Do you have a TikTok? Do you have YouTube? Do you have any of those types of social media platforms? Whether you're active on them or not, you should still have an overall list of all of the ones that are associated with your business name. I add in my personal profiles as well, because sometimes I cross-reference the two and I'll share business things on my personal profile. So I put down all of my social media profiles when I'm making my list every year. It's good to do that every year because sometimes in June or July, something new will come along and you'll set something up, but then it's not what you thought it was. So you just leave it hang out there and then you tend to forget about it. So make sure that you're going through and looking at everything. You can do that with a Google search. You can go back through some of your things in your browser and see what you found. You can look at the apps that you've installed on your phone to make sure that you're capturing all of the different properties from a social media perspective. The other thing that you want to do is take a look at all of your printed materials. Look at your rack cards, look at your business cards, look at any type of printed advertisement, brochures that you have had printed either this year or in years past. A lot of businesses during the pandemic made some changes in order to continue doing business. Maybe they changed their hours, maybe they added delivery, but they didn't necessarily print new marketing materials. So if you made changes during the pandemic that are going to be constant, that are going to stay, then you need to look at your printed materials and make sure that those things are on there. Maybe your hours changed. Maybe you moved into a new location. So go pull all of your printed materials and make sure that the information on there is correct. Is your address right? Or is your email address right? Did you get married? Do you need to change your name? Think about all of the things that are associated with your business from a printed media perspective, and then take a look at them. Take a hard look at them and see if they're all current, if they're all up to date. Think about where you put them. So if you, for example, are a chamber member and have rack cards in the chamber office, take a look at how many of them are there. How often do you have to restock them during the year? Maybe create a spreadsheet that you just make a little note that every 2 or 3 months, you need to bring another 150 or 200 of them to the chamber. That'll give you a really good idea of whether that is a valuable piece of marketing for you, or if you're never really having to restock them, maybe it's something that you don't necessarily need to have reprinted or to continue using. You can put that energy and that budget into something else. The other thing that you want to make sure that you're looking at is your website and any of your online profiles. And online profiles are a little different from your social media profiles. For example, website, obviously everybody knows what their own website is, but take a look at it because it seems to be the redheaded stepchild that never really gets updated because so many small business owners focus on their social media properties. So they're making sure their Facebook has their correct hours and maybe not their website. So take a look at your website. If you have a staff listing on there, make sure that the staff is current so that you're not saying somebody works there who doesn't, or you have somebody that's great that works for you that isn't listed on your website and people may not know that they're working there. Online profiles include things like your Google My Business. Make sure you have a Google listing. Make sure all of that information is current and up to date. A lot of people use other types of online profiles like Merchant Circle, I think is one. There are a couple of other ones that are out there. If you have them, Yelp, those kinds of things, make sure that the information that you have on those online profiles is current. And then take a look at what kind of numbers they're doing. What kind of traffic are they getting? Are people visiting them? Are you getting messages from any of those things? That will kind of help you really gauge what in 2022 was working for you or how people were reaching you. And again, number two is review the content on all the printed materials. I kind of jumped ahead of myself there. Sorry. But make sure that all your printed materials, again, are up to date, that they list all your products and services. And another thing that sometimes falls by the wayside is you'll add new product lines or you'll add a new service if you're a service-based business. And those things don't always make it to an updated piece of printed material. So make sure that all of that stuff is current. And then the other thing that you're going to want to do is track your numbers. We're going to get into the audit here next, but tracking your numbers from the perspective of going in, even if it's today, even if you're looking at January 12th, go in and on January 12th, make a list that says, this is how many people like or follow my Facebook page. This is how many people like or follow me on Instagram. Use that list that you made of all your social media profiles, all your properties for social media, and just do a handwritten list or keep it on your computer of the numbers of the people who are actually like and following you on social media. It's a whole lot easier at the end of 2023 then to look back and say, wow, I started 2022 with this number and now it's less or now it's more, and at least have that number to be able to look at without necessarily having to create a spreadsheet and get in the weeds for a lot of things. And then finally, what you want to do, if at all possible, is to perform an audit of your social media, in particular, Facebook and Instagram. And there are certain procedures that go along with doing an audit to make sure that you're gathering all of the information that you need and you want. That in and of itself could be a whole webinar. So I'm not going to get into the weeds too terribly much on that, but I do have a couple of links to some articles that I frequently send to clients when they're looking to do an audit themselves. One of them is a link on Social Media Examiner that lists several of the most popular social media networks and a step-by-step for how to do an audit. And then the other one is just for Facebook, a Facebook audit and 5 simple steps. And it shows you where to go and where to click to get some of the details and some of the insights and some of the actual numbers that would help you determine whether a posts were successful and what you should be doing more or less of in 2023. So that's kind of looking back at 2022. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about next in 2023 are things that maybe you didn't do in 2022 or that you had out there and you didn't really focus on them. So some of them are going to be things that maybe you want to spend a little bit more time and pay a little bit more attention to them coming into 2023. So some of the non-traditional marketing tools, I will say, because I run into a lot of small business owners who, when I'm talking to them about their marketing, they're thinking, oh yeah, my Facebook post, or oh yeah, my website, or oh, I have an email campaign that I do. And sometimes they're forgetting some of the non-traditional marketing tools, some of the things that we all used to have to do as a small business owner long before social media was ever on the scene. You got to know your customers. And a lot of businesses I have found in the last 3 to 4 years since the beginning of the pandemic up through now have had a lot of change in their customers. They may have had a certain type of customer base in December of 2019. And now looking at December of 2022, those customers are different. Maybe they're younger. Maybe there are more people that buy online than people that come into the shop. So really take a hard look at the type of customer that you have and make sure that whatever marketing you're doing is geared towards those customers, the ones that you have now, not the ones that you had in 2016 and 2017 and the ones that you think you know. Make sure that they're either the same customer, or if you have new ones, that what you're doing in 2023 is actually targeting and being more specific to marketing to those customers. The other thing that a lot of small businesses don't do, and it's so easy to add this into your marketing, is use your employees. A lot of us have staff that are younger than we are. So they are a lot more well-versed in a lot of cases on Instagram Reels, on Facebook. They're the TikTok generation of sorts. So make sure that you're using them. Ask them what they like about social media. Find out if they have a special little niche or some inside information about how things work. And don't be afraid to turn over some of the posting and some of the forward-facing things that you're putting out on your social media to your employees. This is especially important if you have someone that you know a lot of your customers come to your store or come to your business because this particular person works there. So try and make them a little bit more front and center and make them a little bit more of an ambassador for your business and use them in more marketing driven ways than necessarily having them run a cash register or have them do some behind the scenes work. Using your employees and putting them out front really does push you forward to take advantage of their marketing capabilities that maybe you wouldn't have thought of or that you're not thinking of inside the small business owner box. The other thing that I encourage business owners to do is to educate yourself about terms. And I get a lot of questions about this via email when I'm doing webinars like this, because a lot of people don't understand what some of the terms are when it comes to social media. So they're not really sure what that number that says reach down in the bottom of their Facebook posts really means. Who are those people exactly? And how does that work? And is a number good? Is a number bad? How to be able to judge those things. So spend a little bit of time in 2023 picking a term and then doing some education, finding out what does reach mean? What does an impression count as on this particular item? It may not be necessarily the same thing for all of the social media networks as it is for one in particular. So spend a little bit of time educating yourself about the terms that all of these different things use, because it's going to come in a whole lot more handy when you're looking back again at the end of 2023 to see what your numbers were and what worked for you and what didn't. And then the other thing that I will say, and I would say this, whether this was a chamber-based webinar or not, I am a huge fan of all of the chambers of commerce in our Shenandoah Valley area. Take advantage of your chamber membership. If you are a member of your local chamber, in this case, Luray Page Chamber of Commerce, find out what other things that you can do or what other things that you can get out of that chamber membership that maybe you're not taking advantage of right now. I know that Edison sends an email out at the beginning of every month about inserts that are going out in the mailing that they do every month. If you have an event that's coming up, getting it put up on the chamber's calendar, finding out when the networking events are and trying to attend one or two of those. Take advantage of the chamber membership that you are already paying for and make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck out of all of those. So a lot of that isn't necessarily it's the traditional marketing that isn't so traditional anymore. So keep those kinds of things in mind when you're looking ahead to 2023, trying to figure out what it is that you're going to focus on and what things you want to change or improve. Now, the next thing, and this kind of leads from that, is you got to have a plan. And so many times people are like, yeah, I have a plan and it's in my head, or my plan is day to day. And that's just not functional. It's just not something that's going to be able to propel you forward. And your plan doesn't have to be like the image. It doesn't have to be this giant thing that's out there. And you have to sit down right now on the 12th of January and plan out every single social media post and every change to your website and every event that you're going to do from now until the end of the year. It doesn't have to be that detailed. You could do a plan every 3 months, do it on the quarter, do it based on the seasons. If your business is a much more seasonal type business, and just answer these 4 questions. What do you want to accomplish? Who are you trying to reach? What resources do you have? And how will you measure success? And you can have different answers to those questions for the different things that you're doing. So for example, what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to reach on Facebook may be very different than what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to reach on Instagram. The resources that you have typically come out of content creation and budget. So maybe you don't have a lot of budget to reprint your marketing materials. So what can you do instead? What resources do you have access to that will allow you to make changes and do something new or focus on something new without maybe having to increase any kind of a marketing budget that you have? And then how you measure success is going to be different from each of them. How successful your Facebook efforts are in the first quarter is going to look very different than how many people came to the chamber or came to one of your businesses and picked up a brochure or rack cards. So understanding what those things are and that those are the questions that you need to have answered is all the plan that you really need to have. Ideally, you should have an outline for the whole year. And maybe it's something where you decide first quarter is slow for me. So I'm just going to be happy if, and then second quarter, things pick up a little bit more. Third quarter is summer and it's all gangbusters. Maybe in January, you want to start thinking about that plan for third quarter and figuring out what kinds of things do I have to do. Think in terms of what sort of things in June and July came up or happened that you felt like you were behind the 8 ball on. And you thought, man, if I had had more time, I really would have been able to knock this thing out of the park. Think about those instances in 2022 and start figuring out how you can not make that happen again this year in 2023, and at least putting it down on paper. I am a huge fan of writing everything, even these presentations. I sit down, I posted on my Instagram this morning, every one of these webinars start off with my orange Sharpie and a list. I print the presentation that I have because I like to make notes. I'm a very tactile person, regardless of the digital thing. Scribble yourself some notes, use sticky notes, buy a journal or a notebook that is just used for those kinds of things. It'll really help you as you're going along, because we all get caught up in the day-to-day of running our businesses and then forget, or something gets slid down, or it's, as an old newspaper person, it falls below the fold. And that's not something that you want to have happen on a regular basis in the new year. That's a goal that I'm setting for all of you. So we're going to get into a couple of other specific things that you can do. And data these days is queen. And I say queen because, yeah, it doesn't have to be king. What you want to try and do, and this is for those of you who already have email campaigns in place, or those of you who are thinking you're going to start email campaigns in 2023. And even for those of you who think email is just way too complicated and I don't even know where I'd start to get email addresses. Capturing customer data points whenever and wherever you can is incredibly important, especially if you're going to start using email. And email is huge for small businesses to be able to market their business. The cost comparisons, when I mentioned earlier about getting new rack cards printed or any of your printed materials, email hands down is much, much cheaper. And it's a whole lot more effective in a lot of cases than having brochures and rack cards in different places. And collecting data information from your customers isn't that complicated. It doesn't have to be that you're asking them 20 questions when they're checking out at the register. You don't have to be wandering around your restaurant, walking up to tables, asking them for a lot of information. I have one client that has a farm market, and we have a little piece of paper, a little sheet at the register when people check out, that they just put in their first name and their last name. They put their email address and they put their zip code. And the zip code is really, really helpful for us because it really tells us where people are coming from when they're shopping at his farm market. And the reason that that's helpful is that then we can target our Facebook ads, we can target our Instagram ads to those zip codes, because we already know that we have people that are coming to us from those areas. And in most cases, people won't blink an eye at giving you their zip code because it's not really personally identifiable information. So they don't think twice about giving you a zip code. These days, not a lot of people think twice about giving you an email address either. So if you can at least capture email addresses, that's where it's going to come in handy when you start using MailChimp or Constant Contact and you start thinking, okay, I'm going to put this campaign together. Or maybe you already have a campaign and the list hasn't grown because you haven't been doing a lot of outreach trying to add email addresses. Take advantage. If you're already using a point of sale software like Square stores all of that for you, and you are able to export it and use it. Square even will do some email marketing for you as well. So look into what you're already using from a POS perspective and see if it offers an option to be able to send emails out to your customers, or at least to extract and export those emails from that particular program. Some of the things that you may want to make sure that you don't do is, I cannot tell you how many times people will say, well, I ask my customers how they hear about us, and they always say Facebook, or they always say whatever. People are notoriously unreliable. There have been study after studies done where the last thing that they were listening to or looking at before they were asked that question is 87% of the time going to be the answer they give you. So it could be that you are running radio ads. You've got this crazy radio campaign going on now, and you're running 20 or 30 ads in a week, and you're running them over the course of a month or two. And that's probably how somebody heard you. They were in their car, they were on their way to lunch, They heard your radio ad. And then a couple of weeks later, they're driving by your store. They get out, they park in the parking lot, and they pull out their phone for one quick glance at Facebook for something. They walk in the door, they purchase from you. Somebody asks, so how did you hear about us? They're probably going to tell you Facebook. Even if Facebook wasn't how they found you, it's just how we are as humans. We are notoriously unreliable for things. The other thing that you don't want to do is steal emails. You don't want to go to an event, a networking event, and collect a bunch of business cards and then run home and add those to your database. You always want to make sure that you get permission before you do that. And when I'm sending out any email campaign, so for example, anyone who attends any of my webinars, their emails go into my database. But I always send the first email out saying, hey, thank you for attending XYZ webinar. I've added your email address to my database. If that's not okay with you, please click here to unsubscribe. So always give everybody the benefit of the doubt and just don't start sending out spam emails. And then the other thing you don't want to do is ask for personal information. These days, nobody really wants to give out their mailing address. Some people will give out phone numbers if you're offering them texting deals and things like that, but don't get into the weeds too much asking for personal information. Not only are you not probably going to get it when you ask for it, it's going to make you seem a little creepy to the person that you're asking the information for. And then above all, you don't want to be responsible for storing that information. You do not want to have to deal with the security issues and all of the things that come with having someone else's personal information on your computer, in your tablet, or somewhere in your system. So don't ask for personal information. Just ask for the basics that you need to get an idea of who these people are and why they're coming to your store and how often, ideally, that they're coming and visiting you. Now, the next thing that I think are grossly underrated, and thankfully the pandemic kind of gave them a little bit of a comeback, are QR codes. QR codes are really having a moment these days. They are trackable. So again, when I'm talking about going back and looking at your numbers, you can use an account. This example here that I'm showing on the screen is from bit.ly, bit.ly. You can create a free QR code from a link shortening app or software, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's a free service. Some of them have limits on how many of them you can create in a month. You can upgrade and pay a small monthly fee and be able to change the color or put your logo in the middle, all of those things. That's something you have to decide whether or not that's a budgetary issue for you or not. But they are trackable. You can go back and look at a QR code or a link shortening app that you've used, and it'll tell you how many people clicked on it. And ideally, you're using them very strategically. So you're putting them in places and separating them out. So you can use the same QR code that goes to different apps, that goes to different web addresses, goes to different things. And you're able to go in and see the stats on those and be able to track and see which links got the most clicks from the QR codes that you had out there. The other thing that's cool about them is that they're flexible in size. Unlike, say, a barcode that has to be a certain size, you can make a QR code as large and really, really small in as many cases as you need, and it's still going to get picked up from your phone. The other really cool thing that has come along in the last, I'd say 5 or 10 years for QR codes, it used to be that you had to have an app on your phone that actually read QR codes. Now all you need is your camera. And thanks to places like the Today Show, you can be watching the Today Show in the morning and they're doing their special little shopping thing. And you can point your camera at your TV at that QR code and click on it. And it will take you to the page where you can get all of the deals for all of the things that they're selling. So it's much more accessible through mobile devices, which is where 80 to 90% of most of us are getting our information and using information. And they're great to add to printed ads. So if you've got an ad in the newspaper, or you've got an ad in the chamber directory, or you've got an ad that sits somewhere, say all year long, and you have things, you have new things, you have updates, you have changes that are happening, having that QR code in that ad that somebody can zap with their camera and go to your website, go to your Facebook page, go to wherever you want to send them with more current information or even more information is invaluable. It adds so much more value to the money that you're already spending on those printed pieces of advertisement. We saw a lot again during the pandemic, paperless menus, catalogs. There are a lot of places even now that you go into and they're just not printing menus anymore. They have a little tabletop on the table when you get there. You zap it with your phone and you look at the menu on your phone. I'm not a huge fan of those. but they're working for somebody or they wouldn't keep using them. They're great to do your contact information. When I mentioned earlier at networking events, you don't always have to have a giant pocket full of business cards. If you have all of your contact information embedded in a QR code and you meet somebody, say I'm at another chamber function and I meet Andy Gale for the very first time, I can say, hey, Andy, can we connect? Can you send me your information so we can get together to do a meeting or a radio show or have lunch or have coffee? And he says, sure. I just pull up this QR code on my phone. He zaps it with his phone, and now I'm in his contacts. So it is a whole lot easier and a whole lot cheaper than having business cards printed and then remembering to put the business cards in my bag, in my purse, in my pocket, in my wallet, in whatever I'm taking every single time I leave the house. And then the other thing that I think they are the best for is for your social media marketing. I go to a lot of craft shows and a lot of vendor shows. And it boggles my mind the number of these small business owners and these makers and crafters in our area that do not have at their booth a QR code that I can take a picture of to go directly to their Facebook page, to like their page, or to follow them on Instagram. And that is huge because I'm not going to remember necessarily their name. One of the events that I go to happens twice a year over in Clark County. It's Luckett's Fair. And there are hundreds of vendors there. I spend the entire day walking around. There is no way I'm going to remember where I got this little item and what was their Facebook and what was their business. But if there were a QR code at every register, if you're out doing an event somewhere, if you are a bank and you're set up at some sort of community event, having those QR codes for people to be able to immediately find your Facebook, click like, and then move on to the next booth is huge. That you're going to build your social media following so much faster than if you tried saying in any kind of ads or trying to do it organically on Facebook itself. So QR codes, I think, are beautiful. So the other national trend that's happening right now is video and live streaming. And I wish that I could tell you that it's going to be a fad and it's going to move on and you don't really need to worry about it, but that's not something I could tell you. So video-based content is the thing, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So from doing quick little snippets on TikTok to doing Instagram Reels, bite-sized videos, thankfully, are a whole lot easier to create, but they do drive engagement and they increase brand awareness. You have to have some creativity, but it's not as daunting, I think, as a lot of small business owners think. Oh, I can't do video. Oh, I don't want to be in a video. I don't have anything to be able to talk about in a video. And there are a ton of options. You just have to stop for a second and get out of your own box. Again, this is where going to your staff or your employees and say, hey, what do you think we do here that's really cool? And they may say, I love how we do this, or I love how we do that. Well, could you help me do a quick little video for TikTok or Instagram? I will guarantee you they will be all over that. So it just has to have interest. It has to be something that's quick, fun. It can be funny. It can be informational. It can be educational. It can be any of those things. You can include your staff and customers. It could be testimonials from customers that come in and say, oh my gosh, I love these muffins because. Get them to do that real quick on Facebook or do it as a video that you can then post on Facebook. You can highlight new products. You can highlight old products. You can answer questions. If you're in a service-based business that gets a lot of questions, then do a quick video that says, hey, we get asked a lot about blah, 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 blah. Here's the answer to that, and throw it out onto your different social media networks. The other thing that people love to see in those types of quick little snippets are behind the scenes content. As much as we have heard as over the years as small business owners, nobody wants to know how the sausage is made. People really do kind of want to know how the sausage is made. They want to know what goes into it. I host a daily radio show on the river at 95.3, and it runs Monday through Friday. And the number of new guests who have never been on the show with me before that ask me about, well, what happens during the breaks? And what happens if I say a cuss word? Or the curiosity is phenomenal out there. So having behind the scenes content that shows how you make something or what you think. If you're in a retail business and you get a shipment in of a product that you personally love, do an unboxing. Do an open box moment and say, oh my gosh, I am so excited. People will feed off of your excitement and then want to come in and see what it was that you were pulling out of that box. So videos and live streaming isn't nearly as scary in reality as people lead it up to be. You just got to know where your resources are. And again, what resources do I have to allocate to it, and then use it. So up next is user-generated content. And we hear a lot about this on a national scale. And I think a lot of us on a local level, small Shenandoah Valley basis, we think, oh, user-generated content, that's for the big guys. That's for all of the giant companies and the corporations and the industries. And it's really not, because if you already have a really engaged and active following on any of your social networks, then you could probably do user-generated content very, very quickly. And it's more or less the new word of mouth. It's original, it's brand specific, and it's created by your customers. So if you're one of those people that are like, I have no creativity, I have no idea what it would be, ask your customers, what do you love about coming in here? What would you like to see us do? Oh, would you mind shooting a quick video of that? The example that I've got here on the screen was something that totally was an accident. Olivia Hilton is the director of strategic operations or strategic initiatives for the town of Strasburg. And Strasburg is currently redoing their water tower. So she thought it would be funny to put up the water tower and say, hey, what does this thing look like? We had done a radio show, and I had noticed it driving into Strasburg. And on the radio show, I asked her, I said, so why does the water tower have a hat on it? Which gave her the idea for people to be creative and say, hey, what do you think of the work that we're doing right now to the water tower? She had like 300 people that created images like this and posted them back on the Discover Strasburg Facebook page, that she ended up turning it into a contest and gave away gift cards. But those are all images that she didn't have to create. She didn't have to think up. And everybody who had one that they got that posted on there shared that with their friends. So that created this whole viral type of atmosphere where, because you're using something that one of your customers gave you, they're going to tell all your friends, hey, business XYZ over here is using the photo that I took of whatever. So it's not as corporate as you might think. And you can use these, as I mentioned a minute ago, unboxing videos, gift giving videos. If somebody comes in and they're buying a gift for a friend, just say, hey, would you mind when you're giving that to them and they open it, shoot a quick video and send it over to me? You don't have to be in the video. We just want to see the reaction of the person that you're giving the gift to. You can do like Olivia did and do photo and video contests. Again, this is where customer testimonials come in great. The only thing you have to be absolutely sure that you're doing is that you're getting permission. You don't want somebody to make a post and tag you on Instagram and then you to take that photo and put it on your Facebook or put it somewhere else without at least sending them a quick message and saying, hey, this was a great photo. We really appreciate that you love our business. Is it okay if? Nine times out of 10, they're going to say, sure, no big deal. If they're still a little hesitant, maybe you offer them a free soda or you offer them a discount when they come back into your business or that sort of thing. That's okay to do too, but you've got to get permission. You can't just use it, because then the floodgates open and it will do the exact opposite of what you intended for that post or whatever it is that you're using to do. So quick tips that I'm going to go through kind of quick, and then we'll open it up for questions and we can go back and forth and talk about what some of the ideas that you guys have are. So Facebook or Instagram, maybe both. Please take a look at what you're using the most right now, social media wise. And are you getting the kind of traction and engagement on Facebook that you feel like you should be? Or should you be using Instagram? Again, it goes right back to knowing who your customers are. I've had several of my clients who have dialed back their Facebook activity, probably 60% in the last year, because what they've noticed is that they get more engagement and they get more people that are following them on Instagram, that are commenting on their things on Instagram. So they've just channeled that energy and that content into Instagram and are not using Facebook nearly as much as they should, as they had been in the past. Maybe you've got a customer base that's on both. Then do both. But take a look at both of them. Be really cognizant of what kind of posts that you're making, what kind of reaction that you're getting, and what kind of reach that you're getting on both of those social media networks. And then the other thing that I will tell you is, do not post the same thing on both of them at the same time. I know we're all strapped for time. We're all trying to get 400 things done in 15 minutes or less, but don't go into your Facebook, even though they allow it now since they own Instagram. Do not go in and schedule a post on Facebook with a particular photo and say, yes, post this on my Instagram as well, because there is a fairly good chance that you're going to have customers that are on both. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. Am I more active on Instagram than I am Facebook? Yes. But that doesn't mean I'm not on Facebook. And if I am on Facebook and I see this post from you, and then 15 minutes later, I'm on Instagram and I see the same post, it makes me as a consumer think, what, this person can't do both. So they're just doing the same thing for both places. Maybe you use the same text, but you swap out the picture. Maybe you use the same picture and you swap out the text. You have the ability to individualize these posts when you're scheduling them on the back end in Business Suite. So you can make those Facebook and Instagram posts look different so that somebody doesn't think, oh yeah, they're taking the easy, cheap way out. They're just doing one thing and doing the shotgun approach. Shotgun approach doesn't work for nearly any customer these days. They all want to feel like you are talking to them and to them specifically. And again, I go back to one of the things you really, really, really should consider. And if you are doing it, you should do more of it, is build and use an email list. You should be looking at email campaigns. It is the best way to get your name or your business in front of current customers and potential customers. Get a website if you don't have one. I know for years it was the only way to go. And then social media came along and a lot of people stopped doing websites because they said, well, I'm just going to put everything on my Facebook page. People still want to see that website. There are things that you can put on a website that can't ever make it into Facebook. So you still need to have, it doesn't have to be a big fancy. You don't have to sell things on it. Ideally, if you have things for sale, you should be selling on it, but you don't have to have this big hunk of a website out there. Make sure it still has your basics, because if nothing else, you want that domain name so you have your email, because that gives you the credibility when people see that you're using Janet at javamediamarketing.com and not Janet, Javamedia, Janet at Gmail. It gives you that credibility and it improves your reputation. If you have a website, please make sure it's up to date. Don't put your hours on there for spring and then change them for winter, but don't change them on your website. Make sure that you are at least updating that website and it has the current information on there. If you have a website or you're going to get a website, absolutely put Google Analytics on it. It's not as complicated as people think it is. It's simply a link that you're going to add to the backside of your website. If you have somebody that's doing the website for you, they know exactly how to do it. But being able at the end of this year or even every month to take a look at Google Analytics for free, doesn't cost you anything to have Google Analytics, and see which pages are people looking at, which links are they clicking on, is huge when you're trying to decide what are you going to do and what new products you're going to offer, what you're going to get rid of. Those Google Analytics is amazing. The other social media network I haven't mentioned a lot in the last 20 minutes or so is LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is one of those redheaded stepchild type of social media networks. If you are a service-based business, if you are a nonprofit, if you are involved in your community in that you sit on nonprofit boards or you do community-based fundraisers or any of those kinds of things, you have got to have a profile on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where people go to find out whether you're really the business that they think you are. And you don't necessarily have to post a whole lot, but you need to have a LinkedIn profile that says, this is who you are, this is your experience, this is where you went to school. It really does give, again, credibility to your business and you as the business owner. So having a LinkedIn profile is incredibly important. If you are in a business that is more retail oriented, you should still have one because you're a business owner, but it may not be as important unless you're somebody who, if you're trying to sell me insurance versus I want to go to your shop and buy a new candle. There's a difference there in what I'm looking for in a particular business owner. So LinkedIn is one of those things where you should absolutely at least have a profile. Edison and I are working on doing a class later this year on LinkedIn. It'll be, I think, in person at the chamber, and we're going to do headshots, I believe, according to a radio show that we recorded a couple of weeks ago. So that's something to be on the lookout for. And then I'll leave off with TikTok because I'm still on the fence about TikTok. TikTok is a great entertainment social network. It is easy to create videos, and it's a great place to go and get content and creative ideas. I'm still just not sure how well it's going to be as a business advertising medium, especially when we're hearing so much recently in the news about the fact that there are such privacy issues with it that a lot of our state governments and federal governments are no longer allowing the app to even be on business phones. So I say with TikTok, it's kind of one it's a little bit of both. So get on TikTok. I have a stalker account or a troll account, I guess you would call it, on TikTok. I don't ever post anything, but I go and I look, I see what the trends are. And then I go back to a client maybe and say, hey, there's this trend on TikTok. I think we should do something similar to that. But they don't have an actual TikTok account where they would post that. We use TikTok to make the videos and to do research more than we do anything else. So TikTok, I'm still kind of on the fence about. That may change in the next 3 months, 6 months. If it does, I'll do a webinar on TikTok. And then the final thing I want to say is be consistent. And when I say be consistent, I mean, make sure that and going back to talking about that plan, have your message and have that message be consistent. Try to make sure that all of your materials look similar. They don't all have to look exactly the same, but that they look similar to each other. Be consistent in your voice. So if you're making Facebook posts in first person, I love this, or we love that, make sure you're doing that across all of them so that people get a sense of, oh, on this Facebook page that is for this business, it's the business owner. They feel that connection to you a little bit more. So being consistent, if you're going to post, if you set that plan and say, hey, I am posting on Instagram 3 times a week, then post 3 times a week. Don't start off doing it for a couple of weeks and then fall off and don't make a post for 6 months and then come back. And then at the end of the year go, wow, I really didn't get a lot of traction on Instagram. It's because you weren't consistent. So you really have to make that commitment, and you don't have to make that commitment for everything. You can say, okay, you know what? First 6 months of 2023, I am all in on Instagram. I'm putting all my effort in on Instagram. I'm doing photos. I'm doing reels. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to do it. And then maybe the second half of the year, you're going to do Facebook. And then at the end of the year, compare the two and see which one performed better for you, because that may be where you need to spend more of your time going into 2024. So I know that was a lot of information. Let me bounce out of here and get all of you guys back on the screen.